divine changes revealed. After October 12th, 3 miraculous transformations will manifest urgently. The village of St. Michael's Hollow buzzed with excitement and trepidation. Whispers danced in the brisk autumn air as the date loomed closer. October 12th was no ordinary day. It was said to bring forth divine power. 3 miraculous transformations promised to shift the very fabric of life in the quaint English village. Among those directly touched by this prophecy was Margaret, a devoted mother and pillar of her community, fervently praying for her son Andrew's healing. The church, with its ancient stones echoing prayers of old, became a sanctuary filled with the sweet fragrance of burning incense and the warmth of community love. Margaret knelt in the candlelit space, eyes closed, spirits soaring upwards. St. Michael, she prayed earnestly, give strength to Andrew. Let him feel your comforting presence. The soft flicker of candlelight mirrored the weak but persistent flame of hope flickering in her heart. Then, something extraordinary happened. An electrifying murmur ran through the congregation. As Margaret opened her eyes, the air shimmered, pulsing with an unseen energy. One woman, overcome in the spirit, declared that she had seen a vision of Andrew running through fields of daisies, laughter trailing behind him, vibrant and free. The villagers gasped, voices rising in astonishment. The room was imbued with a profound stillness, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath in awe. Yet, amidst the joy, seeds of doubt sprouted. Some church members exchanged skeptical glances. How could such things be? A voice whispered. Others shifted uneasily, torn between hope and disbelief. Margaret's heart ached. She wanted to believe, but was burdened by the weight of Andrew's illness. Would St. Michael truly intercede? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With October 12th drawing near, the church transformed into a cauldron of fervent prayers and whispered anxieties. On that day, the congregation gathered, faces turned toward the altar, hands clasped tightly together, eyes seeking their patron saint's guidance. As Margaret led the prayers, a heavy silence settled. Suddenly, a light burst forth from the stained glass window, illuminating Andrew's empty pew. Gasps echoed through the hall. The light felt alive, pulsating and warm, wrapping around Margaret like a divine embrace. Little by little, Andrew began to show signs of improvement. The doctors were baffled. How could this be? Margaret's bold faith, once questioned, began to stir something among the villagers. Lives once steeped in doubt began to spark with renewed purpose. But as stories of healing and conversion spread throughout St. Michael's Hollow, divisions crept in. Who was to say that faith alone could change the unforgiving face of science? In the heart of crisis, the village faced a choice. Margaret became an unlikely leader, inviting her neighbors to confront their doubts and explore their faith. Each testimony ignited shared hope and shimmering possibilities. The atmosphere throbbed with anticipation. The question loomed, would Andrew's miraculous recovery mark the beginning of the 3 divine transformations promised, or would skepticism extinguish the flicker of faith? As the congregation held its collective breath, one thought resonated powerfully. What would come next in this journey of belief? As the sun rose on October 12th, an unearthly glow bathed St. Michael's Hollow, the air crackling with palpable expectation. The villagers gathered at the church once more, each step toward that sacred space tinged with a mix of anticipation and fear. A murmuring wind seemed to echo their emotions, whispering secrets not yet understood. Margaret stood at the front, her heart racing. Today was a day not only for healing, but also for revelation. She led the congregation in song, voices blending together, lifting higher with each note. The harmonies danced up toward the heavens, yearning for divine ears to hear. He who heals the brokenhearted, their voices rang out, filling the ancient stones with warmth, a powerful plea rising with the melody. Amid the worship, Margaret sensed something stirring within her. A warmth wrapped around her heart, filling the empty spaces once reserved for worry. She felt the weight of doubt begin to lift, replaced by the sweet nectar of hope. Andrew's name danced on her lips, each utterance a sacred spell aimed to call forth his healing. The congregation, united, felt this uplifting energy. They truly believed. Suddenly, there was a shift in the atmosphere. A soft rustle echoed through the church, combining with the fading chords of their song. It was as if the very fabric of reality had pulled back a curtain, revealing an unseen world. Gasps pierced through the congregation, a collective awareness igniting like a flame. They turned their eyes to the pulpit where a figure began to emerge from the light, radiant and serene. "Fear not." The figure's voice was like the gentlest breeze, wrapping around their hearts. "I am here, sent from the divine to guide and heal." The villagers knelt in awe, their minds spinning with wonder. Jubilee erupted in whispers of disbelief and amazement. Was this Saint Michael himself, come to fulfill the promises made upon this day? A ripple of energy coursed through the gathering, igniting their spirits. Margaret pressed her palms together, whispering fervent prayers. "Saint Michael, I stand for my son. Grant us a miracle for him in this village." Tears streaming down her face, she felt an incredible connection to something greater, something that transcended their human experiences. Then, as if answering her call, the radiant figure raised a hand, gesturing towards the back of the church. The door creaked open, revealing a silhouette. Gasps erupted as they recognized it Andrew, fragile but undeniably present. He stepped forward, each movement imbued with a miraculous strength. His eyes sparkled with newfound light, the shadows of sickness seemingly banished. The congregation erupted into cries of joy, the sound rising to meet the heavens. "Andrew!" Margaret's heart surged, hope exploding within her chest. She dared to believe that this was the first transformation, the fulfillment of her prayers. But just as joy filled the air, a whisper of doubt loomed. Would this be embraced by all, or would some still choose to cling to disbelief? As the villagers rushed towards Andrew, Margaret felt an electric current igniting within her, urging her to look beyond the moment. The deepest question lingered in her soul. Could this be merely the beginning? What are the two additional transformations promised? In that moment, as tears of gratitude mingled with fear of the unknown, Margaret understood there was more to come. What heavenly revelations awaited them? Could faith, not only in healing but also in unity, weave deeper changes into the tapestry of St. Michael's Hollow? As the light in the church shimmered with divine anticipation, the echoes of the past and the murmurings of the future intertwined, holding promises yet to be unveiled. What would the next revelation bring? As the echoes of joy filled the air, Margaret's heart began to race with anticipation once more. Andrew stood before her, and she could hardly take in the sight of him, so vibrant and alive, as though a blossom had suddenly unfurled after a long, harsh winter. The congregation gathered around him, their faces lit with wonder, admiration, and an ever-deepening faith. "Mom," Andrew's voice broke through the jubilant silence, filled with affection and strength. "I'm here. God answered our prayers." The warmth radiating from him infused those nearby with hope. Each embrace shared carried a divine essence, a reminder of how connected they were in this moment of miracle. But deep inside Margaret, lingering questions remained. What did this transformation truly mean for Andrew, and for others who still wrestled with their own struggles? She turned to look around at the faces of the villagers, each one reflecting a different story of yearning, suffering, and now, unexpected joy. Let us gather closer, for I believe that our faith has only begun to unlock what the Lord wishes to do among us. She called, her voice reverberating with assurance and enthusiasm. The crowd pressed in, and Margaret felt the palpable energy of their collective hope pulsate around her. The figure of Saint Michael stood still, observing with a knowing grace. His presence grounded them, reminding them that this moment was not just about one healing, but multifaceted blessings yet to manifest. The villagers sat in a circle, forming a tapestry of hope knit together by belief. "Andrew," she said softly, her voice breaking slightly, "tell us what you experienced." He paused, searching for words that would capture the ineffable peace he felt, the encounters that filled his spirit with strength. "I was lost, but then there was light. The shadows of pain fell away, and I felt love surrounding me. It was as if heaven opened just for me." Around them, murmurs of agreement and shared experience rippled through the gathering. Each villager began to share their own encounters with despair and the flickers of hope that danced just beyond their reach. It was a symphony of hearts opening, revealing the hidden scars of their lives and how this day had touched them. Tears flowed freely, but amidst the sorrow was a growing conviction, an understanding that they were not alone in their journeys. We are to support one another, to lift each other in prayer, and let this healing spread. A woman from the back said, her voice strong and unwavering. As they shared their stories, an unseen force pressed upon them, wrapping tightly around the chorus of voices that lifted like incense toward heaven. In the heart of each testimony was a seed of faith, waiting to be nourished by the promise of what was yet to come. Margaret felt the intensity of this moment surfacing, a launching pad for the additional transformations they had been promised. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself, recognizing the urgency shimmering in the air. There were 2 more miracles awaiting revelation. What barriers lay ahead? Would they bear the courage to face them together, believing that, with God, they could achieve the extraordinary? As the congregation bowed their heads and began to pray, Margaret felt a powerful unity woven through the group. The hope magnified, wrapping around them like a holy cloak, igniting each heart with purpose. But deep within, Margaret felt a tremor of trepidation. Was their faith truly expansive enough to embrace the upcoming transformations? What would it take to nurture this divine momentum? As the church doors opened wide to the outside world, bright beams of light streamed in, illuminating the sacred space. Could it be that they were not only embracing divine change, but preparing to unleash it into their very lives and community? The anticipation hovered thickly as Margaret stood in the radiant light, her spirit aflame with possibility. What paths lay ahead, and how would they navigate the divine journey unfolding before them? The answers remained steeped in mystery, but one thing was certain: their faith had ignited a spark that could not be snuffed out. What would these next revelations unveil as they waited on the Lord? As the last amen slipped softly from the congregation's lips, a hush fell over the room, thick with reverence and anticipation. Margaret raised her head, drawn to the golden light spilling through the church windows. It was as if the heavens had opened, beckoning them to step into the extraordinary. Holding Andrew's gaze, she sensed an unspoken bond tie them together. "You felt the light, Andrew," she whispered, the words shimmering with wonder. "What if we could share that light with others? What if our faith could reach beyond these walls?" Andrew nodded, excitement lighting up his eyes. "I believe it, Kim. We just need to surrender to God's will." Margaret looked around at the villagers, their faces illuminated with renewed desire. Every heart seemed to hum in unison, all yearning for healing, for answers. The lady who had called for support clutched a young child to her chest. Her eyes glistened with hope. "We need to go out, reach the lost, just as we've been found," she said, her voice steady and confident. One by one, voices joined hers. "Yes, let us spread his message. Let us heal our town." The chorus grew stronger, fueled by passion and faith. St. Michael's presence seemed to grow more substantial, radiating peace that washed over the assembly. Margaret felt it seep into her being, urging her to lead her community into a new chapter. They were not meant to remain stagnant. The miracles laid ahead, ready to be uncovered. "Now is our time," Margaret exclaimed, a swell of courage ascending within her. "We cannot hide our light under a basket. We must rise, uplift each other, and share the gifts of the Lord." With each word, the congregation swelled with enthusiasm, their synchronized chants forming an echo of determination. Their faces brightened like the stars breaking through a night sky, hopeful and resolute against the darkness. But as fires of faith lit the hearts of many, shadows of doubt flickered at the edges of Margaret's mind. What obstacles awaited them on this journey? Were they equipped to face unseen trials? A sudden stillness enveloped them. In that sacred pause, Margaret felt a gentle whisper against her spirit, a calling to trust in the unseen. "Every step we take in faith is witnessed by heaven," she murmured, solidifying her resolve. Then, without warning, a wind swept through the church, rustling the hair of those gathered and causing the candles to flicker. Margaret instinctively sensed that it was a divine nudge, the confirming touch of the Holy Spirit. The group stared in awe as a shimmering glow began to coalesce in the center of their circle, forming what appeared to be silhouettes, figures wreathed in luminescent light. Was this a revelation? Were these the blessings they sought? Wait, Andrew's voice trailed off, his expression shifting from joy to bewilderment. What does this mean? The sight filled the villagers with anticipation, but also hesitation. They felt a divine magnitude in the air, and their hearts raced. Yet, was it a promise, or was it a test of their faith? Just then, a gentle but strong voice pierced the silence. "Those who trust shall see great wonders," the congregation gasped. What did this mean? Margaret could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her shoulders. Could they truly handle what was to come? As the light began to pulse with rhythm, the promise of divine transformation hung at the edges of their vision. Hope intermingled with uncertainty, igniting curiosity among the villagers. What was about to unfold? Would they embrace the call and step into the unknown? With bated breath, they leaned into the mystery. Poised at the threshold of miracles yet to be revealed, the air crackled with divine expectation, and the congregation awaited the next movement of God's hand with hearts pounding. What would their faith summon next? The shimmering glow intensified, casting warm light across the congregation, igniting a sense of urgency that beckoned them forward. Margaret's heart raced as she stepped closer to the light, her breath hitching in her throat. Each pulse seemed to echo the rhythm of faith, as if the heavens themselves were resonating with every whispered prayer that had been uttered in that sacred place. "Believe, my children," she called out, her arms open wide as though to embrace the vision materializing before them. "This is it. This is the assurance we seek." The soft voice that had whispered moments ago surged back into her mind. "Those who trust shall see great wonders." The figures formed shapes, silhouettes of hope and healing. Each one glimmered with the essence of peace and purpose. Andrew stood, spellbound. "Mom, look," he cried, pointing. "They have wings, like angels." A collective gasp echoed through the church. There, in the heart of their gathering, the celestial silhouettes expanded, revealing tales of rescue, grace, and divine mercy. It was not merely a vision. It was an invitation. "Step into the light," said the voice again, clearer. "Your faith will not fail you." Could it be? Was this truly an invitation to witness miracles firsthand? Murmurs of astonishment fluttered around the chapel like leaves in a gentle breeze. Margaret felt a fierce determination bubbling within her. "We are chosen, my friends," she declared, the flame of her conviction igniting each spirit present. "We must embrace this calling. We need to be vessels of His light and love." "Together," shouted one of the villagers, raising his arms high. "Together," they echoed, hands clasped, voices rising to meet the heavens. As they chanted, the radiant figures began to swirl, merging into a dancing tapestry of colors, each hue vibrating with life and promise. The air sang with possibility, alive with the energy of shared dreams and renewed purpose. Suddenly, a soft, tangible breeze began to envelop Margaret, caressing her cheeks and brushing against Andrew's hair. It felt as if the very breath of God was resting upon them. "What do we do now?" Andrew asked, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. Margaret paused, letting the moment settle within them. "Now we open our hearts. We shed our fears," she replied. Her confidence soared. "We become vessels of his miracles within our own lives." Just then, the light pulsed again, more forcefully, and from its center emerged a vivid image of a broken heart being mended. Tears of joy streamed down the faces around her as they witnessed this profound transformation. "Have faith." The voice rang out once more, powerful and commanding. "For I am doing a new thing." As they absorbed the enormity of the moment, Margaret felt a sense of peace wash over her. But in the far corner of her heart, a flicker of worry pulsed. What if they were not ready for the enormity of this task? What if they faced resistance? A shiver crept down her spine. "Trust," she repeated, letting the word resonate deep within her spirit. Then, as though reading her thoughts, the light brightened, enveloping them in warmth. "Your doubts will be met with my strength. Obedience brings blessings." Each member felt the resonance of that promise, and a deep joy enveloped the congregation. Their faith began to stir, fueled by the unyielding love of the divine. "Shall we heed this call?" Margaret asked, looking into the eyes of her neighbors, searching for courage and resolve reflected back. "Yes," came the roaring agreement, voices melding into a harmonious wave of faith. They took a step forward, unified and emboldened. The moment held a singular power, a divine promise that could shape their lives forever. As they stood on the brink of their calling, the air crackled with energy. The silhouettes gave a last shimmer before slowly fading, but their essence lingered, almost palpable. "Before us lies an unknown path, yet God has prepared our way," Margaret said, her spirit soaring with each utterance. "Let us prepare to transform this town together." Yet a question drifted like a whisper, caught upon the eager winds of their resolve. Would they find the strength to embrace completely the transformations and trials that awaited? As they stood together, hearts pounding with holy expectation, the air thrummed with possibilities miracles awaited. Just on the horizon, what would emerge from the cherished depths of their faith? As the last shimmer of light faded, silence enveloped the chapel. It was thick, expectant. Margaret could feel a shifting, an undercurrent of divine energy, like the quiet before a storm. What next? She wondered aloud, seeking to anchor the swirling emotions and thoughts racing within her. The villagers of Whitmore, still clasping hands, shared knowing glances. Each face reflected the same blend of excitement and uncertainty. Andrew leaned closer to his mother, wide-eyed. "Do you think the angels will return?" His voice, soft yet filled with hope, struck a chord in the air. A gentle smile spread over Margaret's face. "They never truly leave us, dear. Their spirit is embedded in our faith." With that, she felt another wave of peace wash over her. As they stood in that sacred space, thoughts of the town's many worries echoed in their minds. Homes needing repair, families struggling to make ends meet, and fears that crept in like shadows during the night. These burdens weighed heavily on each heart present, yet Margaret sensed a shift. The light they had witnessed was not merely for them, but for the very fabric of their community. "Friends," she said, her voice strong and steady, "we have ignited a spark tonight. Yes, trials await us, but with faith as our guide, nothing is insurmountable. Let us be the hands and feet of the divine in our lives." A sense of urgency spread through the crowd, faces lighting up with newfound determination. "We must identify what the town needs and how we can serve," a voice from the back called out. Margaret nodded, feeling the spirit of unity swell. The suggestions began to flow like a river. Food drives for their neighbors, home repairs for the elderly, mentorship programs for the youth. Each idea vibrated with compassion, urgency, and love. As they shared, Margaret could almost see the threads of hope weaving together, creating a robust tapestry of community spirit. But just as they began to chart their course, a sudden chill filled the air. The door creaked open with a whisper, drawing every eye toward it. A figure stood silhouetted in the moonlight. The atmosphere shifted from anticipation to apprehension. "Who goes there?" Margaret called out, her heart beating faster. A man stepped forward, his face obscured by the shadows, but something in the way he bore himself struck her. It was a blend of weariness and wisdom. "I have come to speak of the changes you intend to bring," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "But beware, there are forces that will resist your light." The congregation gasped, shock gripping them. Margaret felt the weight of his words settle among them, and yet she felt emboldened. "We know challenges may arise, but our faith is stronger." The man nodded slowly, a faint glimmer of approval in his eyes. "True strength lies not only in faith but in preparation. Your path will not be easy, for it tests the metal of the heart." Margaret exchanged glances with Andrew and the others, a shared determination deepening among them. "What do we need to prepare for?" she asked, her voice unwavering in the face of uncertainty. "Devote time in prayer," he advised, "for it is in conversation with the divine that you will find courage. Each prayer is fuel for the journey ahead." The room resonated with the weight of his message. They were not alone, nor were they unprepared. They had received an invaluable key, but challenges loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. As the man turned to leave, the moonlight shone brightly behind him, revealing a hint of grace in his demeanor. "Remember," he said with intensity, "miracles require faith, courage, and action. Prepare your hearts, for the time is short. Changes are coming." With that, he stepped back into the shadows and disappeared. The room was left in stunned silence. Margaret took a deep breath, hands still clasped tightly together with those around her. "Let us pray," she urged gently, knowing that they had been given a glimpse of both the challenge and the promise ahead. As they bowed their heads, Margaret's heart soared, filled with determination. "We will honor the call of our faith no matter what lies ahead." But as the first words of prayer escaped her lips, doubt whispered in the back of her mind, were they truly ready for the daunting trials to come? With an open heart and prayer on their lips, they prepared to step into the unknown, where divine changes awaited just beyond their grasp. What awaited them on this miraculous journey? As the congregation bowed their heads, a hush settled around them that felt alive, vibrant with possibility. Margaret closed her eyes, and the world around her faded into shadows, replaced by a vision of light. She could see flickers of flame dancing just out of reach, a metaphor for the hope they were all yearning for. "Lord," she whispered softly, "grant us courage to face what comes. Ignite our hearts with your fire, guide our hands to do your work." Each prayer was a thread that drew them closer together, weaving a tapestry not just of their lives, but of divine purpose. Around her, Margaret sensed the shifting energy of the room. The weight of fears and doubts melted away as the villagers united in their vision. All were drawn into the same rhythm of faith, hearts beating as one. Andrew's grip on her hand tightened, a silent testament to his belief. As they concluded their prayer, a warm breeze swept through the chapel. It felt as if the very presence of the divine enveloped them. Margaret gazed up, filled with an unusual clarity. "Let us take action," she proclaimed with fervor. "Faith without works is dead. We cannot merely pray. We must embody our faith." Encouragement blossomed in the eyes around her. They began sharing their plans, forming teams to address the most pressing needs of their community. The idea of starting small-scale community gardens surfaced, along with weekly gatherings to share food, both to nourish and to build ties. "I'll lead the mentorship program," Andrew declared, his youthful passion radiating through the crowd. Excitement ignited at the thought of empowering the next generation. Each voice rose, bold with ideas, each suggestion a spark that would fuel their collective fire. But just as the atmosphere filled with energy and enthusiasm, A loud thud resounded from the chapel doors. The villagers startled, looking toward the entrance with wide eyes. Again, their attention turned to the door. This time it swung open harshly, leaving a gust of wind that sent a chill sweeping through the room. "Margaret! Andrew!" A familiar voice echoed. It was Graham, the local builder, his face ashen. "You need to come quickly. There has been an incident by the river." Margaret's heart sank. The urgency in Graham's voice stirred a fear within her that grew ever more real. "What happened?" she asked, standing and instinctively drawing Andrew close. "The dam is now unstable. If it breaks, homes could flood." His words hung heavily, casting a shadow on their earlier uplift. The congregation, once buzzing with ideas, fell silent again, weighed down by the gravity of the crisis. The man's earlier warning echoed back to Margaret's mind. Changes were indeed coming, but not all of them could be welcome. A mixture of fear and resolve gripped their hearts. "We can't just lead the charge in service without addressing this," Margaret said, urgency fueling her voice. A fellow villager spoke up. "We should form an emergency response group, rally volunteers to inspect the dam." With her spirit renewed, Margaret nodded, refocusing the group. "Yes, we will act. We will serve both now, in our community need, and later, as we continue our positive changes." As they began devising a plan, Margaret felt the waves of divine intervention wash over her again. This was a moment for unity in purpose, for demonstrating their faith under pressure. Their burgeoning actions against the looming darkness brought her an immeasurable sense of peace. But lingering questions faded in her mind. How would this incident shape their community? Would their efforts to help others shine brightly enough to push back the encroaching fear? As they gathered their strength and resolve to face the storm, Margaret knew this challenge would test them even more. And yet, she sensed that through it all, divine hope stirred just beneath the surface. What miracles could arise from their unity and action? What surprises awaited them at the end of this unforeseen journey? The night felt charged with expectation, and their faith would need to lead the way. Margaret took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. The chapel, once filled with soaring hopes and dreams for the community, now echoed with the urgency of the situation at hand. She scanned the faces of her friends and neighbors, each reflecting a mixture of determination and worry. The air was thick with anticipation, but Margaret could sense something else, a flicker of hope that refused to be extinguished. "All right, everyone," she said, her voice steady. "We need to act quickly. Let us split up into teams. One to assess the dam, one to organize supplies for an evacuation if necessary, and another to gather everyone with the skills we might need. We must show our faith through action." Andrew looked to her, eyes bright with enthusiasm. "I can lead the team to the dam. Our friends in town are strong and capable. We can gather insights, take readings, see what is really going on out there." A nod from Margaret and a ripple of agreement spread through the room. As they sorted into groups, a prayer bubbled up among them. Voices rising in harmony, this was their call to unity, a plea for guidance, strength, and wisdom. "God, grant us clarity and protection," they whispered together. With a final amen, the group set off into the cool evening. Margaret felt minutes ticking by like hours, urgency coursing through her veins like fire. She turned to Andrew, who was moving ahead with purpose. "Wait," she called, catching up to him. "Are you ready?" "Ready as I'll ever be," Andrew replied with a straightening of his shoulders. "We will stand firm together, Margaret. The river won't break us." With that declaration, they pressed on, joined by others who rallied to their cause, each step resonating with purpose and shared conviction. As they arrived at the dam, the first sight was troubling. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface, and the rushing water sounded more ominous than ever. Margaret could see workers assessing the situation, the tension evident in their hurried movements. She felt her heart race. Would they be able to avert disaster? "Let us quicken our pace," she encouraged her team, who jumped into action, each player ready to do their part. They began taking notes, measuring water levels together, calling out reminders to one another. The air was electric. Even the clouds above seemed to swirl in anticipation of what was to come. Then, as they gathered around the group of engineers, a powerful thought struck Margaret. "What if we prayed right now?" she suggested. Heads turned, eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and reverence. "Together?" Andrew asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, together. Let's invite God into our work. Let us feel the power of united faith." Hands were taken. Voices rose softly at first, then filled with assurance. The crowd nearby paused to listen, captivated by the sincerity of their prayer. "Lord, protect us. Grant wisdom to those working here. We trust your plan, no matter the outcome." Just then, as the last word escaped their lips, a gentle breeze swept down from the heavens, seemingly carrying their prayers toward the divine. Suddenly, the waters around them roared louder, and a collective gasp rose among the gathered crowd. Margaret felt an unusual stillness settle in her heart, a sign that something was changing. Was it just her imagination, or had the very air shifted? In that moment of serenity, deep within, she understood. Whatever happened next, they were not alone. Their faith was uniting them in ways they could not yet comprehend. What revelation awaited them in the unfolding story? What miraculous support would the community find in confronting this crisis? As the waves crashed against the banks and the darkness of uncertainty loomed overhead, Margaret sensed the dawn of transformation just around the corner. Challenges like this had a way of changing everything. And wouldn't it be remarkable if they could discover the light hidden within the storm? The unfolding drama of faith had only just begun. The roar of the water grew louder, a relentless drumbeat echoing the urgency in Margaret's heart. She felt the tension ripple through the crowd, pushing them closer together as the power of their faith surged. "Keep your eyes on the water," she urged, her voice rising above the cacophony. "We'll need to stay alert. If anything changes, we must react quickly." Around her, faces twisted in concentration, their mission tangibly alive in the air. Each breath held a sense of purpose, and it was evident how the moment had woven their spirits tighter. They were unified, bonded by the love of community, the power of prayer, and the undeniable presence of courage in the face of adversity. Andrew took a step forward, his hands poised as if ready to catch something they could not yet see. "Look!" he shouted, pointing toward the water's edge. A shadow flickered just below the surface, a sign of risk, or perhaps something to be feared. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd, a collective acknowledgement of their situation. "Everyone, let us assess the cracks." A woman called out, her fingers trembling as she gestured for others to join her. As people spread out, Margaret stood firm, her eyes focused on Andrew. He continued to lead with assurance, a beacon during the storm. Little by little, they started noticing peculiarities in the water flow, and Margaret felt deep stirrings of intuition anchored in her soul. "Maybe we need to ask God for another sign," she suggested, her heart beginning to thrum with anticipation. "We are looking for guidance." Calmly, they gathered once more, hands clasped together as they surrounded Andrew. Margaret led this second prayer, each phrase a thread weaving them into a stronger tapestry of faith. "Lord, grant us wisdom. Show us your way." As they spoke, the clouds above seemed to shift and part slightly, letting a slant of moonlight spill down, illuminating the water. For a moment, the chaos seemed to quiet, and a profound peace washed over them. The visible hope in their hearts glowed with a richness that felt tangible. Suddenly, from the back, a voice rang out, shaky yet brimming with faith. "I'll go into the water." A strong man, Caleb, stepped forward. "Trust in me as I assess this." I can feel the depth and see the cracks closely. Gasps ensued, but before Margaret could say anything, the man was already wading through the water, determination evident on his face. The winds picked up, swirling around him, as if blessing his mission. "Wait," she shouted instinctively, but Andrew gripped her shoulder, eyes locked on Caleb. He knows what he is doing. God's hand is on him. Just believe. How often have they seen the power of faith turn fear into action? This moment felt like a mirror reflecting the battle within each heart, a decision to trust, no matter the storm surrounding them. As Caleb walked deeper, a stirring wind whipped the water into frothy waves, each crest sparkling like holy whispers around him. Margaret wanted to shout for him to return, but a true exhilaration filled her soul instead. Perhaps this was the essence of divine intervention, the courage to take a leap of faith despite uncertainty. The crowd held its breath. Then, suddenly, as Caleb reached the center near the cracks, the water splashed higher around him, and he began to shout, "The cracks are deeper than we thought. We have to reinforce them. There is something else." Margaret blinked, the tension escalating, her heart racing alongside the gathering storm. What did Caleb see that could change everything? Would the community find the strength to avert catastrophe? With every heartbeat, the answers seemed closer, and she could imagine the fateful transformations ahead. The night was thick with divine anticipation, and as the waves began to recede slightly, marking the beginning of a new chapter, hope swelled anew within them all. Could this be the moment they had so long awaited? The rushing waters trembled and twirled, but amidst the chaos, the spirit of unity anchored the hearts of the villagers. Margaret felt the collective breath of hope, infusing strength into each soul present. Caleb's voice rang out, slicing through the fears gripping them. "We need to act now. Reinforcements. Call for help." As each villager leapt into motion, worry evaporated, replaced by an electric sense of purpose. Margaret and Andrew sprinted to the group, organizing supplies, their minds racing to coordinate the emergency effort. "Use the timber from the old church benches," someone shouted, a surge of resourcefulness piercing through the air. "Let us build a support for the dam. We must protect our homes." In a matter of moments, teams were rushing from the chapel, gathering materials, calling on neighbors, rallying resources. Time pressed heavily upon them, but so did the weight of faith. "Together, we can do this," Margaret called out, her voice unwavering, a guiding light amid the turmoil. The atmosphere buzzed, alive with fervor and determination as hands called on heaven. With every swing of a hammer, every movement taken in unity, Margaret felt the momentum shift. Walls of trepidation crumbled, replaced by the power of collective faith. Each villager became a vessel of divine purpose, pouring their hearts and hands into the task at hand. "Keep praying," Andrew shouted over the thrumming chaos, his youthful spirit unyielding. He worked side by side with Caleb, who now was leading the effort at the dam, every step transforming fear into action. Before long, amidst the shouts and the pouring rain that began to fall as if the heavens were pouring forth blessings, the villagers formed a strong line of support against the impending flood. Margaret's heart soared, witnessing how their faith had ignited something far more formidable than doubt. They were not just a community. They were a family bound by shared devotion and courage. As the water level threatened to rise higher, Margaret felt a holy power surging through her, filling her with conviction. "You will not break us," she cried aloud, feeling the ripple of collective belief rush through the crowd. "With faith, we will stand firm." The storm, fierce yet unstoppable, raged on, but with every challenge, every moment of shared struggle, their strength deepened. Margaret could see the determination etched on every face, how doubts faded, replaced by hope. They were reclaiming their power, each heartbeat sinking to the rhythm of faith, now booming louder than any storm. With newly anchored struts in place, cries of joy bubbled up as they began to stabilize the dam. "We can do this," Caleb yelled, and cheers followed, echoing through the raindrops. In that moment, the air shimmered with divine promise, and Margaret understood the first transformation had already taken root. As the dam withstood imminent disaster, a radiant light seemed to glimmer over St. Michael's Hollow, illuminating every heart. In this act of unity and service, they were not merely doing for one another. They were embodying the essence of faith that had brought them this far. "Praise God," Margaret declared, her voice lifting toward the skies, tears of gratitude cascading down her face. "We are united, and through our unity, we are transformed." Suddenly, it was as though the weight of heaven fell upon them, a resounding echo of harmony washing over the congregation. Something shifted in that moment. It whispered promises of hope far beyond their current struggle. Andrew turned to his mother, eyes wide, filled with realization. "Mom, look," he said, pointing toward the sky. All heads turned upward, jaws dropping in awe as a brilliant light broke through the clouds, piercing the darkness. Joy erupted among the villagers, their spirits soaring higher as they recognized the depth of their miracles, the depth of what had been birthed through their faith. The storm, though ferocious, had become the backdrop for divine transformation, a testament to the love of a community bound by an unshakable spirit. "He is here. He is with us," someone shouted, and with that, the congregation joined in, their voices blending into one powerful anthem of praise. As the storm began to subside, the villagers gathered together in a circle, acknowledging what they had learned amidst the darkness. "We have seen his hand at work," Margaret exclaimed. "In our darkest moments, we found light, and through faith, we have been transformed." Tears flowed freely as laughter erupted, hearts tangled in joyous celebration of their shared victory. The unity, the love, the strength, those were the miracles that would forever change St. Michael's Hollow. Yet, as Margaret stood surrounded by her friends, a sudden thought struck her heart. What about the two other transformations foretold? "Today has marked our healing," she began, her voice steady. "And as we venture forward, let us continue to seek his guidance. What other changes await us?" Around her, the villagers shared knowing glances, their hearts now echoing a renewed purpose. They had faced the storm together, but the journey was far from over. "Together we will seek his will," Andrew declared, and the congregation roared with affirmation. As hope surged like a tidal wave, they stepped into the future with faith unyielding. Let this be our rallying cry. Let us bring this light to every shadow in our village. Margaret shouted. In that sacred moment, hearts ignited a promise of divine transformation, a collective vow to carry the hope found within their journey, sharing it beyond their church walls. With hands held high and hearts ablaze with unity, they would rise together. No longer would they be merely a village, but a beacon of faith for the world to see. Do not wait even one more second. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel to witness the unfolding story of faith that transforms lives. Leave a like now so that you can help feed the algorithm for these divine messages. We'd love to hear your thoughts, reactions, and testimonies about this powerful ending. So comment below and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this manifestation of hope. Only true servants of God understand the immense importance of supporting our channel through these actions. Together, let us shine brighter and spread his message far and wide.